There's several strategies to optimize your bot performance and the overall consumption of tokens. The first one, which is one of the most important ones, is the backstory. The better the backstory, the more performant the model would be. This means that you're removing some ambiguity from the model's context, and that allows the model to perform some of the operations a lot quicker or without using too many iterations. Optimizing the backstory is the key, especially when you want to use cheaper models. Obviously, more performant models will be able to perform better, but cheaper models are not as performant. This brings us to the next optimization strategies, which is selecting the model. You can select a model like GPT-4o or GPT-4. Obviously, there's a price difference between both of them. If we select cheaper model, this means that we'll be able to maximize our usage as well. So we'll reduce the number of tokens consumed by the bot, in some cases by a factor of 10, in some cases even more. This can be combined with the backstory. So even if we choose a cheaper model, for example, we can select something like GPT-4o Mini. It's very performant, it's very cheap, but this means that it may not work exactly as prescribed in all situations. Therefore, we need to optimize the backstory, as I mentioned earlier. Even with that in mind, even if we select something more expensive, there's a few little things that we can do in order to squeeze more performance out of the model in terms of cost optimization. The first one is to reduce the max context window. This is the total number of tokens that this particular model can take into consideration for each iteration. So this is the total size of all the messages that we can send in one single go to the model. And by default, we're using the full context, but you can actually only allow half of that. This means that in the worst case scenario, after several iterations between the bot and the user, the maximum that the bot will be using for each iteration will be up to that number. So we can even put it something quite low, which is, let's say, 1,000. This means that for each iteration, the bot will be able to use only up to 1,000 tokens, but no more than that. If on average you have 4 iterations or 10 iterations per conversation, this means that the total for you is 10,000 tokens. Last but not least, we can customize the interaction messages that are sent to the bot during the conversation. This is the number of messages that are part of the context window. This is right now set to a generous number, which is 100. This means that the bot will be able to reference things that has happened 100 messages ago. We can increase that number. We can set it to 1,000 or whatever you want. But if we want to optimize it and make it more cost effective, you need to bring that number down. So if you're constructing an agent that is simply performing question and answer style conversation, then you can set that number safely to something like 4. It means that the bot will be able to answer the question of the user, but also it means that you won't be able to reference any material or information that has happened several iterations ago. In terms of some of the Q&A style bots, we recommend the number 4, but you can set this up to any number between 4 and 10, and you're going to get automatic performance increase in terms of the token consumptions for each iteration. With the max tokens and the interaction message count, you can reduce significantly the number of tokens spent for models, even when those models are by default the most expensive models on the platform.